I'm here with Sophia, our music director. What I think we have reflected on and what I think we now understand is that in a lot of ways you have been our music director since last June, but that's not how we understood it originally. What did you think you were saying yes to in June, and how has it evolved?
What I understood was that we're sort of embarking on a change in your music ministry, and you were looking for somebody who could be present in the summer months to be your musician in residence. And so that was the first question I said yes to, was to come to Colorado for maybe a 10-week period that would entail worship planning and Sunday song leading and music leadership and potentially a summer choir, components like that, just bridging the gap, I guess, between where things were in the spring and then what you were looking forward to with the fall.
If you could put one word around what your experience is over the summer, how would you describe that for folks?
I think the word that comes is surprising, beautifully surprising. It was just this collection of delightful surprises that included getting to know this team and this community and the choir members who were present over the summer. I came into it thinking, because it was how we planned it, that there was a finite amount of time that we were planning on. And I discovered, and we discovered together, we being the team, all of the possibility that exists in the music ministry and how we kind of all started to forward think even beyond what would be my time there. There were lots of just exciting conversations and fun, creative conversations, challenging conversations, idea exchanges, and then just the music making itself that just was constantly connected and joyful and just so fun.
So in September, you went back to New York and we had an intent of hiring a music director that was not you. And then, as you said, you went through that process together and discovered when we didn't find a good fit in that hiring process for you to continue in some way. Can you just describe like that? I think for some people it might seem really confusing how you are able to do music direction, which is an inherently embodied and in-person experience when you're not embodied and in person the majority of the time. And maybe just describe a little bit about if the summer is surprising and fun, how would you talk about the time of doing this since then?
I think that where I would start is by talking about the amazing team that is embodied and on the ground and doing the work week to week. Christopher Watkins Lamb with Melissa Monforti, with Kara Shobe, Julie Koenig, and Shinchuan Lin, Katie Steeper playing percussion. In late November, we added Benjamin Hansen to that team, who came back to us in his choir director role. And of course, we have incredible instrumentalists. We've had lay song leaders. We have had the madrigals singing in our services. We've had the choir. We've had some small groups. I mean, the list of folks who have committed to being part of this ministry goes on and on. So I want to start by holding up all of the people who are making that music happen week to week. And I will also say that music ministry is not just what happens on Sundays either. There's a lot that is really important in what happens in the work toward Sunday, constantly happening. Every week we are looking ahead at the next upcoming Sunday, but we're also looking 2 and 3 Sundays out. We are talking about our larger series and then honing in on each week and looking ahead and saying, okay, where are we focusing our theme and who's leading music that day? Can the choir be involved? What's the right music? What are the messages? We're so fortunate that all of our musicians are incredibly dynamic, talented folks who also bring unique senses of style, presence, leadership, and ministry of their own. For me, that means working with the worship team over the course of the week, both in our larger meeting settings, but also one-on-one. Sometimes that one-on-one happens with the worship lead that week. Sometimes it happens if Elaine is doing the prayer that week and we want to weave together a song and a prayer. So we'll touch base one-on-one, or Eleanor and I will talk about music that could weave together the multi-gen moment. And so then it becomes my job to say, this is what we're going to do this week, and then connect with the music team that week to say, here's our music. But not only is this our music for the week, here's how it's going to work in the service. Here's what this is offering to this moment. Here's what's happening right before this moment. Here's what's happening right after. There's a lot of creativity, collaboration, and communication that makes all of those things possible so that once we all get to church on Sunday, the thing happens in the way that we all envisioned that it would happen. That doesn't mean that it's always perfect. There's been a lot of learning along the way, a lot of moments of me realize, especially early on, like, oh, I have to remember to tell the music leader lead that, or the song leader that, or I have to remember to put in the script that we need underscoring there. Whatever the thing is, there are little things along the way too that I've learned how to evolve the way that I communicate, or the little details that help to make it for a cohesive experience for everybody. When you speak about this is inherently an in-person thing, the Sunday experience and everything leading up to it is kind of what comes to mind first as the part of the distance piece that probably seems like it's the most confusing, maybe. But having embodied it myself as much as I have, noticing those learnings and working with this great team, who so many of whom I had the opportunity to work with in person over the summer, that was also an enormous help.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I asked you to tell us about the differences, but I think what came through for me and what I was reflecting on about my own experience of your time with us is the ways each experience built on the one before, and that I think part of the reason this can work is because of what we experienced in the summer. And I don't know that we would have, first of all, we probably wouldn't have come up with the idea, let alone could it have been possible to do this work in the way we are without having had a foundation of your time with us in the summer. So that although we're very lucky to have that team, you are the through line and the one that's ironically the most present. I wonder if you can just share a little bit about how do you stay connected to that team and what your practices are of, you said coordination, communication, collaboration. What I think all of those words imply is both it's technical and it's relational.
Yeah.
So how do you tend to both of those things?
I think that a lot of it comes from the real understanding that though you are right, the through line is directed and guided by me, and I am the consistent connecting factor that is leading this ministry. And what's not happening is that the worship planning is completely in my hands, and there's no component of it that also lives with our music team. Everybody on this team has their history at this church, and I really value their input because they are all brilliant, experienced people who have a lot of depth of their own worship planning life as well. As we get to know one another and we get to know one another's styles and strengths and all of that, it's really fun to also connect on the music that kind of makes each person come alive, whether or not it's for a really planned upcoming moment or something way down the road that we can't yet see.
One of the first things I heard about you was that she freaking loves church. I would love to have you share a little bit about your church story and how your understanding of church has changed as your job is church. And if you still love church or how that has shifted.
I mean, I have the church that I grew up in, which was a Catholic church. And then I had, as a young adult in college and beyond, I had church jobs because musicians are out there working church jobs. I never felt like I stepped into a church that was also going to be my spiritual home. And then 3 years ago, Adam Pod asked if I would come for Palm Sunday as a conductor. And I was like, yeah, I love conducting. I love music. I love singing. I love choir. This is an easy yes. So I went in and I did Palm Sunday, and we have a week full of rehearsals beforehand, and then Palm Sunday happens. And I was in those rehearsals experiencing the music and the people and then the day of hearing the sermon, and I just was looking around like, hold on, I want to come back next week. And I remember saying that. I said to Adam, I know you hi technically hired me, but I just kind of want to be here. And he was like, yeah, that's allowed. So I started to sing with the choir and I started to go to church and I started to conduct the choir and I started to song lead. I learned a lot from the other song leaders at church around me and from Adam. I've been a music teacher and conductor of adults and children my entire life. And I think that I had a skill and a natural tendency or ability toward leading a community in song. And I quickly just discovered what that meant in church and in Unitarian Universalist church. And I started to hear songs as church songs, and I would just be like, oh, that's a song to be used in church. My brain started doing that, and it started really feeling exciting and beautiful and connected and fun and really, really meaningful. And so I got really lucky that I wasn't seeking church at the time, and now I just can't even imagine my life without it, truly. To answer the second part of your question about Foothills specifically and coming into this role, there's so much I've learned, and there's just so much I have yet to learn as well. And I like to say that I'm enjoying being both a leader and a learner in this space. And by that, I mean there is a lot about Unitarian Universalism that I have learned in these past few years and a lot that I continue to learn. And I think that all of the things that I just described to you that I have started to hone because of my love for it these past few years and my natural tendency toward thinking in this way, putting that into practice at Foothills in such a way that allows me to take all of those ideas and learn where and how they land and get to know this team and how this team works. That has been from the moment I started a really beautiful discovery of and not just the team, but the congregation and the music that the congregation loves. And so, yeah, I think that that encapsulates my story, and it's true. It's so true what he said. I do. I, I mean, not only do I still, I always am loving it more and more. It's just really work that I feel called to, and I feel really, really lucky that I get to do it.
What do you think is the difference? I know that might be hard to summarize, but the difference between doing music in the church setting and in other settings that you have worked in.
I have spent my career in a couple of different capacities. One is that I have worked in the nonprofit world of children's choirs, and I've worked in that area in New York City as well as in Boston and in Savannah, Georgia. Many children's choirs start in second or third grade and go through high school senior age. So that has been the span of my time. I would say that my specialty within that is singers between the ages of 7 and 14 whose voices are unchanged. I don't work in the nonprofit children's choir world anymore, but I do continue to work with children in a couple of capacities. Every state has an all-state choir, and so I do a lot of traveling and conducting those choirs, which really, I love it so much. It's a different and special kind of magic you get to make in a couple of really concentrated days with a group of young people who come together to sing, and it's really, really special. I get so inspired by working with children, and it really feeds something beautifully creative and uninhibited, and that's a really special part of my world that I love. And I also work with adult community choirs that are not attached to a church or any other kind of institution. So that's a little bit of a glimpse at some of the other work that I do. I think that the biggest difference is that community choirs, whether adults or children, have a certain expectation of music education that is inherent to the music making. And the other major difference is that the finish line is different. You're programming and working toward a concert where folks gather for the sake of hearing music in a concert setting. At church, we are responding to something that is so much bigger than any one of us. It's so much bigger than any one person's taste. There's something greater about the greater good of music in ministry that we're focusing in on, and not music for music's sake.
You're sharing from the music making perspective. I wonder also if we could talk about the music experiencing perspective. In that, I was thinking about it this Sunday. We had Christopher leading, And I've been to many concerts from Christopher and actually went to one of Julie's concerts this weekend. So I have seen each of them in a concert setting. And there are times when they're literally doing the same song they're doing in their concert as they are offering on Sunday. And so it made me reflect on what is the difference of listening and experiencing that same piece, but in the setting of worship. I would love to hear, how do you think about that, or how would you hope we are thinking about that?
I feel like I need to hear more to understand your question.
Let's say that so Christopher in his concert, let's say he's singing We Are the Keepers. That is one of his originals. And
Yeah.
then he sings it on Sunday. As a person that maybe has attended both of those things, what do you imagine is happening or should be happening or you hope would be happening in the concert versus what's happening on Sunday in worship? Is it the same? What's different? What's the objective?
Yeah, that is such a good question. And I think the reason I'm struggling with it is because I am actually secretly hoping we are receiving it the same way out in the world as we do at church. I think that's why it kind of connects back to what I alluded to earlier is I think when I got to church for the first time, I was like, oh, this is what I'm up to. Like I'm trying to do church at my concerts.
Yeah, right. But
I-
that's really good to realize. And also maybe you can describe what, when you say that, what your aha was about what you meant by church.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what it is. So my evolution as a choir director, a conductor, I have always been, and in I think recent years, just increasingly and increasingly and increasingly so, I've just always been really interested in the people aspect of the music making. So I just would look for connective threads and tissues and ways to let the music resonate with the choir, with the audience in ways that I don't know, that like ignited something for them. I have told my choirs as we lead up to a concert, yes, I want them to be wonderful and great and confident, and I want the music to be solid, but I'm so much less concerned with this perfectionism than I am with the music doing something to somebody's heart and like feeling like they just came alive somehow, whether it tugs at a joy or a pain or laughter. I have told children so many times, and I continue to, your parents show up to these concerts because they love you and they're proud of you, and they will be there in that seat and they will applaud for you. But how amazing would it be if they actually surprised themselves into being truly moved? And there have been lots of times that there was a time recently in the past few months that I conducted a concert and a parent came up to me and said, "My kid was actually in a different group, but I really want to tell you what I loved about your group. There was just something really different about what I felt from what they were doing." And I had a colleague friend of mine say to me recently too that she admitted she showed up. She was like, "I wanted to support you and I was here and I love you." And I was really taken aback by how moved I was by that concert. I really didn't expect to be. I think that the overarching thing is just like, how are we connecting to people through music? How are we connecting both to the people performing it and to the people in the audience? Because if the audience is feeling that, that means that we gave something. There was like an exchange there. And so when I think about going to hear Christopher singing We Are the Keepers at his album release and hearing him at church, I think that there is certainly a quality of his too that makes his space a church space. And I'm not saying that we have to show up and expect church everywhere we go, and nor am I saying that that is what's happening. I'm not even saying that that's right. I think that sometimes we're also going to just really enjoy some live music from our talented friend, and there's nothing more that it needs to be than that. That's a really special thing. But I think that the musicians who show up at church are heart-led people whose heart-ledness is met with their incredible talent, and that's what makes it possible for us to receive things on an emotional level that feel really meaningful and impactful. And in church, I think what amplifies it is all that is wrapped, all that it is wrapping itself around, and all that is wrapped around it. You get to feel like the impact of the music as it stands alone, certainly, but you also get to feel it in the context of something, whether it is a meditative moment or a prayer or immediately following a sermon that you feel like, oh my gosh, if I sing this mantra, then I really get to take into my body all the words that I just heard. And that's how I'm going to hold it and remember it and associate with it and engage with it and walk away with it and keep it as part of me. So I think that there is power in all of it. And I don't think that I am currently the best at articulating the difference, mostly because I love church because it was what I recognized in myself as like what I wanted music to be.
I love that, obviously, and I recognize that in how you do music at church. I have I have a couple of thoughts. Because I came from the theater, I thought a lot about what the difference is between what we're doing on Sundays and a performance. And you name a few of those things, which is, I think, relational. And then also the not after something that's perfect. I sometimes have said to people, especially lay folks, getting up and speaking in front of everyone, we are here to be human together
Yeah.
in front of each other. And to me, that's the most, that's that it's the biggest difference is you're actually trying to find ways to strip away the performance to do that with each other and for each other. It's the opposite, actually, of a performance. The goal is to try to use the experience to strip away the performance. But the other thing that I wanted to name that you didn't say, but I think is important, is the enduring relationship component of church, in that the people who show up to any given concert may have a transformative experience relationally in the moment, but do not also know Christopher's, well, maybe they do his things, but don't have an enduring relationship with his children, with his partner, with the joys and sorrows of his life, and vice versa. That embedded sense of enduring relationship and how that shifts what it means that we're co-creating together. To me, I understood that early in my work in church, but I really understand it in my now having been here 12 and a half years, in that what I look out and what I know we are doing together is so profoundly different because of what we're doing outside of the room. Like what happens in the room is just so different because of that dynamic and the commitment that we've made to one another beyond the moment. So I think like that's part of what I think has been powerful about this team and working with this team is the fact that all of these folks are people. They aren't just like drop-in musicians that are doing a gig, that they
Mhm.
have a deep sense of commitment and relationship to Foothills and to our community. So I want to end on, as we look ahead, here we are in January, and we have a whole year of making music with you ahead of us. I'd love to know something that you're looking forward to or that you're thinking about as you look ahead.
I think that as I look forward, I'm just excited to be doing it. And I know that that sounds really basic in a way, but I think you are right that I have been in this leadership position since last June. And also, it's had these mini chapters of time. Summer was a mini chapter. I feel like September was a mini chapter and into the fall. And our music team really came fully together by the time it was Christmas. And we had the choir back and Benjamin back and all of these things. And now we started the new year with the most fun music retreat on Saturday, January 4th. It was such a joy. And it was so special to go into fire ceremony on the 5th with that. If you came to or were or tuned in to fire ceremony, you notice we had a whole band on stage. That happened because of what happened on Saturday and just people showing up playing and an organic, like, let's do this again tomorrow with this music. And so just kind of entering with a full sense of possibility is just one of the things I value the most. It allows space for all of the collaboration and planning to meet with that type of spontaneity and learning and getting to know people and having that feeling that there is an invitation into this ministry. I'm so excited to move forward with that continued sense, both when I am there at Foothills and also here in New York City and continue to do this work from here. It's one of the reasons that I love doing this work so much. It's people. It's just people, and it's the people who make all of it come to life. And so the more and more time I get to spend with all of the wonderful people that make Foothills what it is, just the more I just get so excited. I left last Friday and my next trip is upcoming in mid-February. Every visit helps inform what come next and the work in between. And so I'm just really excited to be in the work and to continue to have really creative, exciting, meaningful, connected moments. Our entire world, our country, our everything from our family units to the bigger world around us is going through a lot, and we need each other, and we need church, and we need music, and we need all of it. And so I'm just really looking forward to being part of offering to this world and to this Foothills community what we need when we come together, and that we know we have each other and that we know we have this space and these people. So it's really just so special to be part of, and I'm just excited to keep doing it.
We'll try to cover a series of topics over these weeks, but if you have anything that you wish that we would have covered or that you're curious about, please let me know. You can find me at church here on Sundays, or you can send me an email, or you can always reach out directly to Sophia. You can find her also on email or about once a month here at Foothills, and she will be here again all this summer to spend the summer with us here in Fort Collins.